Okay, so the question that Jonathan asked me is whether our civilization is ready to learn the existence of extraterrestrial life. And to start to discuss this, I want to split it into two parts. First of all, I'm going to talk about life in general, and then at the end, I'll talk about intelligent life. So, in terms of life in general, my view is that it's almost certainly out there, but what I'm talking about are things like bacteria. We might see chlorophyll in some neighboring planetary system. Um, and are we ready to deal with that kind of life? I think the answer is absolutely. Um, because I think everybody suspects that it's out there already. We know that half of all stars have planets around them, and it seems almost inconceivable that some of those planets don't have life of some kind. So I think people are, without thinking about it, are already more or less accepting of the idea. But what it would do is it would allow us to answer all kinds of questions that we really can't answer right now. In particular, we'd like to know how long it takes for life to develop. Does it take 100 million years? Does it take a billion years? And we'd also like to know under what circumstances life began. Did it begin in a hot environment? Did it begin in a cold environment? So I think there are all kinds of scientific questions that might be answered if we could detect life elsewhere, but I don't think it would cause civilization to crumble. Now, if you want to talk about intelligent life, then I think the stakes are very much higher. Say we detect a coherent laser pulse or some neutrino beam or something like that, so that tells us there's intelligent life. That's a much bigger deal. I would be very interested, for instance, in seeing what happened to various world religions as they try to put aliens into their belief system. I think that would be fun to watch from the outside. But I do worry that human beings seem bad at dealing with even small differences. They don't like strangers, and the idea of there being other life forms, intelligent life forms out there, I think would be quite troubling. But I'm not too worried, and that's because I think it will be almost impossible for us to communicate with these beings. Ignoring the time differences, which are probably takes decades for the information to get there and back, I think that trying to establish communication with beings that we have nothing in common with is almost impossible. If you think about the Rosetta Stone was useful because we knew what languages were involved. If you imagine trying to communicate when you have no idea how their language is structured, I think that's very difficult. And in fact, there was a case when a bunch of SETI experts were given a coded message that might have come from aliens, and none of them were able to decode it, even though the message had been created by creatures of the same species. So I think that I'm not too worried about this issue just because I think the barriers to communication are so high that we'll never actually be able to have a conversation with them.